Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Sex, Lies, and Consciousness with your luscious hostess, May Vu, broadcasting live every Monday at 12 noon Pacific Time.
Hello, everyone. This is May, and I am so excited to be here. It's Monday, a beautiful Monday in California. It's 12 o'clock Pacific Time, and I am here with two lovely, lovely guests, and we are going to talk about sex and parenting. How do we talk to parents about, that's not a bad slip. Actually, how do we talk to parents on how to talk about sex with our kids? Because I think it's such an important conversation, and I have a personal opinion. I think we suck as parents at talking to our kids about sex. I think we're all wiggy and weird about it, and we keep promoting and proselytizing shames and restrictions and all this stuff, thinking that that's going to handle this big topic. So I'm so glad that we are talking about this, and this is part of I just feel really called as I do these shows, Sex, Lies, and Consciousness over the years, is that this is a topic that I'm really burning up passion about. As much as female ejaculation has been, and all those other things are really fun, and BDSM or open relationships or negotiating healthy relationships, all of that is wonderful. And I think there's something really sacred and really important and urgent about how we talk to our children around sex as parents and as aunts and uncles and teachers and whatever other roles that we play in this world. Before we dive in, I wanted to let you know that last week on our Google Hangout, we did a beautiful show on orgasmic meditation. I don't know if you've heard about orgasmic meditation, or short for OM. It's not the Sanskrit OM kind of thing, but it's short for orgasmic meditation. It's a beautiful, beautiful spiritual practice that uses the clitoris and meditation, combining meditation on a clitoris. Haha, isn't that interesting? So if you are interested in that conversation, check out my website, Sex, Lies, and Consciousness. It should be the first YouTube video that you see on that site, or you can go to my YouTube channel, May Vu Coach, and it's on there. Fun conversation. And the next one that we're going to have on Google Hangout is developing your own sexual practice. So why not? If you have a spiritual practice, a physical health practice, why don't we have a sexual practice? Let's have one. Okay, so on to today's conversation. My lovely guests are Aurora and Ashley. And I'm just going to let you guys introduce yourself, give the audience some stats, like your name, how old you are, and how you relate to this topic. And take your time in telling them who you are so that we can connect with you, and then we can just dive into the meat of this. Aurora, would you like to go first?
Sure. So my name is Aurora. I have been a women's empowerment coach as well as Goddess Gathering, I call it, facilitator, and Red Tent facilitator for about 5 years. And within that time, I've talked to a lot of women about their views towards sexuality, but also their views of their children's views towards sexuality. And so a lot of conversations have come up around it. And I was sexual very young, and my parents were not sex positive in a way in which I could actually talk to them about my sexual interactions. In fact, I got a lot of "you're a slut" rather than, this supportive atmosphere towards my views. And I worked with Child Protective Services for a period of time, and talking to those kids who have all been sexually abused, and the fact that at 9 or 10 years old, they're coming up to me and talking to me about, I'm going to have sex with this person and that person, and they're babies. And I know that within the social work offices, they said we can't talk to the kids about sex at all. We just have to pretend it's like don't ask, don't tell. I just went, that is unbelievable, especially from where they're coming from. So I posted a lot on Facebook, and a lot of people follow me on Facebook through my posts. And I spoke about wanting to write a sex-positive kids book. And also, I call it Yoni butterflies and lingam flowers, but just changing our perspective on sexuality. And there was another beautiful, I'm sure both of you know who she is, Elaine Caban, and we were talking about creating DVDs for parents to give to their kids, just talking about what it means to make love, and talking about sex-positive practices, and something that the kids can watch at 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, 13 years old, whatever, because actually kids start thinking about sex very young. Maybe, parents don't even realize how young that kids start thinking about sex, in a way in which they can start developing really good, healthy, sex-positive connotations to sexual practices. And I know that good is relative, but in my opinion, telling our kids that they can't masturbate and that be a virgin until marriage, when in our culture at the same time they're going to school and all of this rebellion's going on, it's mixed and it's muddled.
Thank you so much. Oh, now I'm developing a funky echo on Skype. Great. Ashley, you go, honey.
Thanks, May, and thanks, Aurora. Hi, everyone. This is Ashley Apple, and I am so excited to be here because I'm super passionate about this subject. My background, similar, actually, Aurora, I've been super sexual at a very, very young age. I actually remember my first orgasm when I was 3 years old. I remember the entire experience in detail. It was involved humping the couch and just having this incredible experience of pleasure. And I feel really lucky that my parents didn't shame me, so I feel really blessed on that level. And I think it contributed to the fact that I grew up very sexually open in a sense. But even with my parents just kind of being comfortable with the fact that I was always touching myself or masturbating, and they were open, they were available, but it was interesting. There still wasn't this super sex positive openness and just comfort around how to really educate me, not just about what I was doing, because even though they were okay, that's nice, you touch yourself, I wasn't exactly sat down and been do you know why that feels good? And this is part of your body. And, there wasn't that educational piece. And so my background, the work that I do in the world is I am a sexuality educator, and most of my work has been with adult women, and I have a huge focus on women. I have a course called the Juicy Living Course, and the whole purpose of it is that I'm trying to empower women to really get access to their sexual energy and their pleasure, to not have shame or to have blockages or repressed energy, and allow them to feel all the different aspects of sexuality, the different ranges of emotion, and to connect their heart and their mind with their sex, with their orgasm. And so through my work of teaching workshops and classes and really diving in deep with women, it's really come to my attention that these same women have children, and a lot of them, have daughters and sons that are coming of that age where they're curious. And just like Aurora said, these kids are really thinking about this kind of stuff way earlier than I think most parents realize. And a large part of it is because society is blasting, movies. I mean, even in the cartoons now, the animated movies that are for kids, there are sexual innuendos and, suggestions. And so these kids, just like they mimic, parents and everything else, they're mimicking sex with each other. And they don't have the education to really understand, it's not just that it feels good to rub your genitals together or to touch body parts, to explore, and also that can be okay and normal, but that there's emotions involved, and that there is the concept of making love, and that having intimacy, and what is intimacy, and what is orgasm, and why would you, have this kind or with this person, or why would you even want to let someone touch you or to become vulnerable, and to explore all of that with our children, so that we completely remove this wound around sexuality and the shame that is just such a part of our upbringing. So I'm really passionate about figuring out a way that we can start to educate our kids, hopefully with the parents' help, and change the way that sexuality is viewed in the West, especially.
Thank you so much, and welcome to the show. And let me just introduce myself a little bit around this topic too, because I think it's really important. Of all the topics that I do, I find this one scariest for me, because I have a lot more saboteurs in my head, a lot more screaming images of parents and I don't know, religious people, and that would say, how dare you advocate this? We're going to sin because of you and your show. And so that's what freaks me out about these things. But really, at the core of this is just I'm coming from this place of being a mom. I'm a mom of a beautiful 12-year-old daughter, and I want so much to help raise her in a way that she is sexually positive. She owns her sex so that it doesn't have to be taken away from her, and she doesn't have to use her sex to buy a relationship, to get love, to get acceptance in the world. Like, I want to know what it takes to help raise an individual to own their own sex, like they own the way they eat, or like they own, their hair. It's like there's something here for me that is just, I'm just passionately being called to talk about this, explore it, work it with my daughter and with all of her friends, whoever that wants to come and talk to us about it, because I think it's just so important to raise healthy children, healthy people with their sexuality as they grow into adults, so that I don't want my daughter to have lots of things to drink and get herself all lost and confused and then have sex, because that's just the dumbest thing that you could do in this world. So that's me in this voice, and I'm also a coach, and I work with divorced mom actually, who are dating again, and so they also come to the table with, May, what do I do with this, and how do I talk to my children about my new relationship with this man and about my affair that I had, that broke our marriage up? How do I make peace with all of that, and how do I forgive myself, and how do I unshame myself so that I have any chance of stirring forward in this lifetime, around sex and my children and the new man in my life and all that stuff. So it's a really intricate conversation, and I'm just so excited to be here. So I feel really blessed. There you go. So I want to start us at this first place where you both said you were sexually active at a very young age. I mean, as a parent, I just go, there you go. Here's the first place that is so challenging for us. What do we do when our kids are sexually, exploring and active at a very young age? And what is a young age? Is 1 or 2 or 3, is that the young age? Or is 7 or 8, or is 9 or 10? There's so many complications in all of those phases. So let's dive into that one. Who wants to jump?
I would love to jump into it. This is Aurora. First, I would love to tell a story of a woman who came to one of our goddess gatherings, and she came and she's like, oh, my 12-year-old son is on Match.com, and I was really uncomfortable with it, and it was interesting, her reaction and the way that her son was uncomfortable and couldn't really talk to her about it, because what it brought up was, oh, he must be thinking about relationship, he must be thinking about sex. And she, in our very liberal women's group, believed that she was in the right in that space. And I told her my story. I said, when I was 10 years old, I believe, because I'm 27 now, the internet had just started these group chats where you could go on and chat with anybody. And at 10 years old, I would go on and I would do cyber sex. Like, I would try and find guys to have sex with me. And I swear, I could stick anything up my vagina and I would get off. Like, I was such a horny 9 and 10-year-old girl and then I would email with them, and I'd send myself those emails. And my mother used to go through my mail, and she went through my email and she found those emails. And I remember my mom coming up to me and just being like, she freaked out. She was really angry, and she told me, she's like, don't you know what those guys are doing behind the computer screen? They're jacking off. They're getting themselves off. So I remember at 10 years old, I looked at her. I'm like, of course they are. Like, my brain couldn't understand why that was wrong. Yeah. I was like, I'm horny, and that sounds good to me. Like, it wasn't computing. And
okay, wait, I'm going to just stop there for a second. Let all of us take a deep breath and let that in, because that's a new scenario right there. That's a new conversation right there. I promise this conversation was going to be unconventional, and we are starting off beautifully. honey, it's so unconventional to hear you say that out loud like that and to hear it from the child perspective. Because we're so burdened with the adult shame and disgusting perspective that we carry around, we can't see what you just said. So I want to repeat what you just said. As a child at 9-year-old, feeling all this sexual feeling inside you, it just feels good. And it wasn't hurting you, and there wasn't anything wrong with it. I could just hear all these parents go, yeah, but we're supposed to go in and tell them that is wrong. And like, is it really wrong? Or is the fact that as parents we go in and tell the kids that that's wrong, now we just made it wrong. Do you know what I mean?
And I want to continue, because throughout time, it just became more and more shame from my mother, from my friends, but because my friends had their parents' stuff on top of it, just mass confusion and not being able to express myself, even at a younger age. I remember somehow being able to sneak rated R movies and just how vibrantly sexual I was when I was young, and I'd have to lock myself, in my room and be sneaky about it. But I have to say that my whole life I've viewed sexuality as something pure. I have never viewed it negatively until certain societal...
Until your mom told you that was shameful.
have done it, and that's why I call it the yoni butterflies and lingam flowers. Like this, it's literally like I see it as, being virginal and being incredibly sexually active, they're the same thing. It's just what's quote unquote bad or harmful about it is not respecting ourselves, not being in an empowered space, not being in our yes. And since we're not having this conversation, with the kids, they become rebellious, they get experimental, and they get hurt. And when they get hurt, they have nobody to turn to because we've told them that what they're doing is wrong.
Yep.
Exactly. And I really want to add on to that, Aurora. This is Ashley. I want to add on to that because my first memory of having that first orgasm when I was 3 was that it was so sexual because, it's an orgasm. I was, humping a couch and rubbing my vagina against a couch and experiencing orgasm that way. But it wasn't a sexual experience. It was this pure experience of bliss. It was this amazing feeling in my body where I felt really happy, really good. I was so excited, and my next thought after the orgasm succeeded, flowed down, was that, oh my God, why doesn't everybody do this all the time? This is amazing. And so I had such a pure state of the experience, and I want to really highlight that because I think that's where I want sexual education to come in and make a difference, is that to stop the shame factor and to stop telling kids it's wrong, it's bad, you're dirty, you're a slut, because it's actually the experience of sexuality is such a pure and loving thing.
Okay,
and if
I got to tell you guys this because it ties so into this. So last year I did a show on boy circumcision, and I had Dr. Ryan McAllister on there. He's awesome. He's a beautiful young man who now dedicates his life and his work to educating people in this country and around the world to stop cutting the foreskin off the boy's penis because...
Amen.
Because, let me tell you, because why? I had to ask Ryan. I'm like, why did it start? Why did it start in this country if it's not about religion? And I swear to you, he said, well, you look back in the history of the medical industry in this country, way back when I can't remember the right date. I think it's in the 1800s or when they first started. They decided to cut off the skin of the penis because at that time they believed that any kind of excitement was bad for a human's health, and especially a sexual excitement. They just think that people should just be really dampened down and stabilized and normalized and and not be excited. And so sexual excitement was such a threat to humans' health, so they thought. And so they cut that off to remove most of the feel good in the penis. And so it's true, when you cut the skin, the foreskin off the penis, you remove about 80% of the feel-good, of what's available there for a little boy or for a man, and you only leave them like 20% left. And so I'm just like, I just want to die, because it's like, that's like our beginning. And I'm not even going back to even more beginning than that, but that is the beginning way back when, that we are not checking in, we're not asking, we're not protesting, we're not questioning for ourselves the things that got passed down to us.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. You're saying we're not asking, we're not questioning why, but we are. I mean, here we are, and it's definitely shifting. But there are things that we're saying that some people are going to find incredibly taboo.
Yeah.
And write about sex and kids, I'm like, I'm going to write a sex positive, for children. Definitely, I got feedback that you write out sex and kids, and it's going to be a turnoff for a lot of people. So my feedback was that, no, write it for adults, but do it in kind of a playful style. But I mean, we have to ask ourselves, what are we so scared of when we know that kids are sexual? They are sexual. I mean, we can't.
I think we're scared. As a mom, here's the very first thing. As open as I am, and as such a champion that I am, I still have this voice that lives very clear, very near to my thought pattern. Is immediately I go to this place of, oh my gosh, if I really come clean with my daughter and said sex is a great thing, and that it's good and it's healthy and blah blah blah, then that means she's gonna have sex with everybody out there, and she'll be uncontrollable.
Oh yeah. And yet, how beautiful is it when you, instead of being like, sex is amazing, like, go and throw yourself at every man, what you're talking about is self-respect. You're talking about what love means. You're talking about like how she can be in her yes and use her discretion and really be clear in her empowerment.
Yeah, like we want her yes to be coming from a real yes, an informed yes, and her no to come from a really powerful self-belief no place. Like that's what we want to teach our children. We don't want them to just have a blanket fear of sex the way we've been passing it on, so that they can, control themselves, so that they can restrict themselves, so that they can suppress their life force.
Exactly, because they'll just start, rebelling, like you said, and they'll start engaging in sexual activity without the education and the know-how. I remember when I was like in 4th grade, and I remember there were girls who sat at the back of the bus, and they let the other little boys like touch them and touch their vagina. I remember one girl who was like a friend of mine was like, "Oh, I let little Bobby finger me," and I remember being like, "What? Like you let him put his hands in your vagina?" I couldn't imagine it at the time. I was like, "Why?" And she's like, "Why not?" And she didn't have an informed yes. She did it because why not? Why don't you? She didn't have a relationship with her heart and her emotions. It wasn't a clear like, I'm, like I want this boy to touch me because I want to feel good because I care about him or I like him. It was just like, that's what you do, isn't it? And so I find that a lot of women even get involved at a young age with date rape and getting forced into situations sexually where later as an adult, they're like, I actually think that I was raped. I mean, I didn't say no, but I didn't want to have sex, but I laid there and let him do it. Right. And I think to myself, like, this is what we're sending kids off with without educating them. We're not giving them that permission to ask themselves what they want.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it is where you want to, like, shake the world and be like, it's backward. You guys were doing this backward. Like, it's all backward. And we're sort of like, don't ask, don't tell. And when I worked with the Child Protective Services kids, and social work offices said, don't ask, don't tell, I went, fuck you. Don't ask, don't tell. Like, this is literally what we're doing. We're like, oh, we know that our kids are rebelling and are being experimental, but when we don't talk to our kids about empowerment practices, about what it really means to make love, they're going to possibly get hurt.
Well, I think you just spoke to another difficulty in here, is that as parents, as women and men in the world, our own relationship to our sexuality is all screwed up.
Yeah.
It's kind of like people who eat poorly, they pass down their poor eating habit to their children, and it gets repeated. People who are abusive pass down their abusive thoughts and behavior to their children, and it gets repeated. And, you see the kid at 3 or 4, hurting a dog or something like that. Then you're kind of like, how did that happen? Well, trace it back. Like they say, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree kind of thing. So then this gets complicated, because in order for parents to have a healthy conversation with our kids around this, they themselves have to really look inside and say, oh shit, I don't have a healthy conversation with myself around sex. So what do I do, right?
Yep. Exactly. And that's why, like, this brings me to the subject of, like, okay, so, I mean, Aurora, I love that you want to do this children's book. And by the way, I say, fuck yes, like, please make it for kids. And so what if you turn off a large portion of adults that are going to be like, oh, God, you can't do that? Like, we need people to make a stand and actually say, no, this needs to happen. But the other question is, like, so where do we start with, education? Like, I love the idea of the DVDs. I love the idea of the book. I'm really interested in seeing if, like, there are going to be parents out there that would be willing to take their 8-year-old child and sit down in a class or, like, some kind of educational setting where they learn together. Because, quite frankly, the adults, like you said, May, they need to actually learn. And part of why they have the fear is because they've never had permission to explore the intimacy and their orgasm and the heart connection. And, they were raised with shame around touching their vaginas. I mean, you would be amazed at how many women have never, like, taken a mirror and looked at their vagina or actually put a finger inside. I mean, like, maybe a tampon application is the most that they've ever even, like, explored their bodies. And it's like, this is your body. Like, why have you not just, like, touched it? It's amazing.
Well, you made me think of, like, oh, God, you're right. We have gone at this sex education for children so wrong. At any time, whenever we are about to teach our kids sex education, we should be sitting down and taking our own sex education, or sex uneducating or undoing our sex education, so that we could have a better conversation with our kids around this thing. Because there's nothing wrong with them. They're actually, what I really love about talking to you both right today is, like, you really gave me a really pure connection to what it was like for you as a child, discovering this energy that moved through you, this feel good. I'm not labeling it, the normal word like your sex energy and all that stuff. I just wanted to, like, be really neutral about this so that we can see this. This was just an energy that felt good, just like you were discovering cold to feel cold and hot to feel hot, and then it's like, woo, this feels good, and you just follow it and follow it and follow it. And you were perfectly safe doing it. And because we come in and we label it as dirty and wrong, we actually are the one that put the explanation, that puts the shame on it, that took away the feel good and created confusion for the kids. So really, the children are not confused about their sex and their energy. It's we are the one that's confusing, and we keep repeating that pattern. Insanity. Anyway, let me just take a quick break. Can you believe it? It's been 30 minutes since we talked already. So when we come back, I want to hear what are some of the common questions that mom or dads have when they come and talk to us about, how to talk about sex with their kids, okay?
All right. Sounds great.
Is your marriage or relationship in crisis? Where one partner wants to expand into their sex and bring scary changes to the relationship, while the other partner is dug in, protective, and saying, no way in hell is this going to happen. May knows this place well, and she can help both sides. She is truly amazing. Learn more about her specialty, crisis coaching for couples and individuals, at sexliesandconsciousness.com.
All right, we're back, and today we're talking about sex and parenting. How do we talk to our children around sex? And is it time for a different approach, a more unconventional but honest and clean and accepting? And I'm here with Aurora and Ashley, and I forget which one said this, but one of you said that I'm tired of telling sex to our children from this scary, fearful place. What if we tell them from the juicy, delicious, yummy place? What was it that you said, Aurora? butterfly.
Oh, yeah, yoni butterflies and lingam flowers. So
I love that. Is that your trademark? I think it should be.
To take a little bit of a sidestep, one of the workshops I do with the women is yoni printing, and we take our vaginas and we print them on canvas with paint as an empowerment tool, because when they print, they are a butterfly, a flower, or a heart. That's how they print as.
Wow.
And so women who have never looked at their vaginas, or I have women in the circle who have had labiaplasty, they have a new association to their yonis. But the point being, like, the bigger perspective of it in terms of the kids is just like they're playful.
Yeah.
They're playful.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. So anyway, so both all three of us actually work with women, and we get a lot of women who finally, when they open themselves up and share about their sexuality, they also ask us about, well, how do I deal with this with my kids? So let's just share a couple of, like, what are the common questions that you get from moms or dads, if you happen to talk to them too, but what are the common questions that you get from moms? Aurora or Ashley, go.
This is Ashley. The most common one that I get it actually is really simple. It's like, where do I start? Like, how do I even just start to talk about this? And one of the concerns often with the parents is, depending on how old the child is, like, they're like, they don't want to talk to me about sex. Like, say the kid's 12 or 13, so it's already, the kid's older already. And if the parent's like, okay, so we need to have a talk, and they're like, oh, God, Mom, we're not going to have that talk. I mean, it's already that society, has influenced the children and the parents around, creating a wall. So I really encourage parents to try to start actually much earlier. And the advantage to starting earlier, like starting with an 8-year-old instead of like a 12-year-old, is that when you tap into a younger child's mind and heart around sexuality, it's not so much about it being about sex, where the kid already has a perception that it's shameful or dirty or, ew, I don't want to think about my parents having sex. It taps into what, both Aurora and I were talking about, is that, like, at a pure age, at a young age, sexual energy is just energy. It's pleasurable. It feels good. It's healthy. And so if you can talk to your kid, and you don't even have to necessarily start off by labeling it and saying, we're going to talk about sex to your 7-year-old. And then I'm like, okay. You could say, like, I want to talk to you about the different ways that your body can feel good and how wonderful that is, what a miracle it is. And you're a little boy or you're a little girl, and that means that you're going to have even different types of feelings and different types of pleasure. And there's the physical body pleasure, and then there's the, emotional pleasure. Like, how you love me or you love Dad or you love, your sister. You can start talking to them about the emotional pieces as well as the physical pieces. So that's the advice I usually give to that first question, is where do I start? First off, my advice is start when they're younger. And second of all, start by talking about it as a pure sense of energy and pleasure, and then start educating around the anatomy too as well. So I can go on for this for hours, but I don't want to take us off too far. So I don't know, Aurora, do you have some questions?
Just commenting on that, my heart started opening because I think about, wow, how amazing my sex would be today. Because right now I'm taking off the layers of all, the years that that the muck has come on, but from the beginning of just, I'm allowed, I'm allowed to feel my sexual energy streams. I'm allowed to see it as pleasurable and beautiful. And just I think the association that because I feel my sexual energy, I'm going to become a quote unquote slut, I'm going to become abusive with it. Yeah. That's not a true association. Again, teach empowerment, teach yeses and nos, teach what real love is, and teach about when you are in love or whenever you're fully empowered in your space, that it's to allow it to be beautiful, to allow it to be yummy, because that's why we're human, yay.
I have to tack onto that. Exactly. This is Ashley again. I also believe, and this is something that I carry into the work with adult women, but it starts with the little girls. Oh my God, this is so important, especially, and little boys as well, but our sexual energy is our creative energy. And they're we can use them in different ways. This is the same energy that you use to manifest your dreams, your vision, your purpose in the world. You both talk about empowering, the young children. It's when we tell them that these pleasurable feelings, are bad, or no, you shouldn't touch yourself, or oh my God, you're going to be a little slut, or you're going to end up pregnant, or whatever, all these things. it's like we put this negativity on a place in our body, on an energy place, where we are not going to be able to access for other things later in life. And is there any wonder that with like the start of Generation X and then Generation Y, and then I don't even know what the generation of kids are now, but there's like a little bit of like unmotivatedness in the children and kids. I mean, more and more kids are in their 20s and even into their 30s that are like, don't know what they're doing with their lives. They aren't happy. There's a rise in depression. I mean, there's just like so much heaviness around like people really feeling like of purpose and connected to source, connected to their creativity. And I believe it starts with shutting down the sexual energy.
You're completely...
Okay, wait. I got to get in here. Now we're going off to the sexual energy, which I love. And I'm reflecting as a mother, as a mother who had a baby in my hand. And, and at that time, I had sex with her dad while she was a baby, which was fine, which was very normal, actually. But I tell you, when she was maybe a year old, we stopped doing that in front of her. It didn't feel right because we had our own stuff, right? And so this is where it falls apart. I think it starts a lot younger than even at 8 or 9, because you can't. It's kind of like, imagine this: if we're going to teach our kids to eat, but we don't talk about eating, we don't share eating, we don't eat in front of them, we don't do any of that until they're 8 or 9, what do you think that's going to look like, right? Ever since they were born, like we eat in front of them. We don't talk about, how lovely eating is and how glorious eating is. We just eat in front of them. And I think this is where it gets stuck, is that we are so afraid to have sex in front of them. We're so afraid to show public display of affection or of sexual arousal. We don't know how to do those things. So we shut that down and we become appropriate. And then we, later on at 8 or 9 or 12 or whenever, and we say, yeah, this is good. It's a complete mismatch. And I haven't been able to break that myself. And to be honest, this is as far as I got, which is, I only really honestly came out last year during vacation with my daughter and the rest of. I usually go on vacation a week long on the beach with a family friend who has 2 kids my daughter's age. So the 7 of us just kind of hang together in the same space for 7 days, and we never talk about the fact that mom and dad need to have sex, right? We just kind of like squeeze it in somewhere under the blanket, or sneak it in somehow, or not even have it because we have a full room of people. But last year was the first time where I brave enough to say, okay, guys, you guys go down to the beach first, and Keith and I are going to stay here, and we're going to have sex, and then we'll come down. And the whole thing, we're like, everybody stop, and the children, now they're 10, 11, and 12, right? And they're like, oh, did you have to tell us? And you see, I think I missed the boat on that. If I had done that, ever since she was 3 or 4, it's no big deal. It's like, okay, Mom, come down when you're ready. So there's so much undoing here.
There's so much. I mean, you're going against society as well, and our children go to school with their friends, and they hear from their teachers and their parents, and they're from the TV, and the TV and the radio completely give mixed messages. But there's a lot to go against, so I want to hold space for you in that, and I think that slowly, though, it is our piece to talk to our kids and have these really beautiful discussions with them about sex, about even what's coming up for us emotionally, about trying to talk to them about
sex. Exactly.
About all of it. And then also we start having our like-minded friends. Our like-minded friends have their kids that they get to spend time with. But I wanted to talk about what Ashley was talking about the sexual energy. And I know that all 3 of us are into sexual consciousness. Mm-hmm. And you're so right on in terms of sexual energy and creativity. And by the way, I say that when a mother is giving birth, that baby is grazing up against the clit. Like when you are nursing, it's an erogenous zone. Your baby is nursing on your breast. It's sexual energy is constantly running through us, and when we cut off that stream, it is cutting off a stream to consciousness, to creativity, to that glitter, that rainbow colors. And that's just what I believe, because I happen to know that when I go into my most artistic spaces, my sexual energy is flowing through me. So there is something to be said about how powerful that really is. And I think just because, our society is set a certain way, we have decided that it is appropriate to take out that stream. And anything you put in that stream is dangerous and it's wrong.
Yep.
And it's just a societal construct. It's a religious construct that we don't need.
Right. Well, we're so misled, actually. And there was a time, like up till from 0 to 39 years of my life, I actually made a contract with myself to cut off the sexual stream of energy so that we can just be safe and accomplish things in this world. And literally on my 39th birthday, I had this conversation with myself that I was completely unexpected, and my voice inside said, listen, are you going to kill us off or are you going to set us free? Because this is like do or die now time. And that was the first time that I realized that, oh my gosh, that's what I've been trying to do, with kill off my sexual stream so that I can be appropriate in the world.
Mm-hmm. Because that's what's around us. I mean, everyone is trying to conform and fit in. I mean, if you look at traditional cultures, though, and this is what, I've traveled around the world. I've lived in Asia for years. I've seen different cultures, and that's really, really helpful in realizing that, wow, especially for people who have never left their home country, let alone their home, their hometown, that other cultures do other things differently. And, even the Inuit, culture, the Eskimo culture, it was totally normal that kids, like you said, May, their parents had sex in front of them, not obvious and hey, wake up and watch, kid. It was they're under their furs, and it's there's one igloo. What are you gonna do? It's snowing blizzard outside. We're adults, we're having sex. It's part of life. And the kids, I think there's just an acceptance to it, and I do think it freaks parents out when they're just oh my God, like you said, May, you're really vulnerable. It's if I'm worried if I sit down with my kid and I tell her about this, she's gonna want to go out and become a crazy sexual, promiscuous young girl.
Right.
And I think that's really, important. We have to find a way to educate the parents and the children at the same time in a way that feels safe, because again, it's like you said, Aurora, we have to educate them, not just okay, this is how you have an orgasm, and this is where your clitoris is, and this is what a G-spot is, and this is how you get pregnant, and this is what making love looks like more than. You have to educate about checking in and is it a yes, and why do you want this? Why would you want to be close physically with another person, and what do you gain from that? And it's your choice. And really shifting that and making it okay. And it's an uphill struggle. You're fighting against a large mass consciousness that just thinks that you're going to turn everybody into.
And I have to tell you too that telling our kids at 8 or 7 or whenever that sex is a beautiful thing, they actually barf at it. I literally got to witness this. My daughter had a birthday party with her 10-year-old friends, and they were sharing how their parents talk about sex, and one said, my mom said sex is so beautiful and it's so special and it's something that you just make love with your partner and blah, blah, blah. And then they go, gag, and they throw up. Already at 10 years old, they already are throwing up at that presentation.
That brings me to, again, the authenticity. Be real about all of it. And, when you were talking about, you're going to teach them, if you tell your kids that, sex is so beautiful and wonderful, they're going to want to have sex with everyone, it kind of reminds me of, if I put candy on the table and I give them as much candy as they want, they're just going to eat candy forever and they're going to explode in Candyland. I think that, we can teach them about what it means to respect their body, but also to just really feel into their own body about what it is they really desire and really want, because sex is so intimate. I have a feeling that, and this is not true for everything, because I think every person's different and unique, and people have different wants, needs, and desires around their sexual interactions, but to come back to the intimacy of connection and the importance of finding that match that's going to respect you is so important to whether or not, how they choose, how many partners they end up choosing. I think it all needs to be on the table. And I love the idea of going to your child and saying, you know what, I want to talk to you about about sex, but what's coming up for me is my fear, and these are my fears. You know, I'm afraid that all this is going to happen, but I want to let you know that I feel that I want you to honor your sexual energy streams. And from my experience, I also know that it feels even more beautiful when I have a connection with somebody, and I'm clear in my yeses, I'm clear in my nos, and let's talk about what it really means in a yes and a no, and let's really talk about what love is. And again, it's not in a way of boxing in like, well, you're only going to make love when you're in love with somebody. I'm not putting that box on it, because honestly, like, growing up, I had a lot of casual sex as part of, it was almost normal in the way that.
Well, I can feel it in your energy as you just got there, and I can feel the old conditioning come crashing in on you, and you're kind of like tiptoeing around that, you know, and it's like, yeah, you know what? It's time that we pull those two things apart. Sex is sex, relationship is relationship. You want to have sex because you want to discover sex for yourself. What does that feel like for you? What makes you feel good? Who you want to have sex with, and your whole right to have sex with. And you can walk away when you're done feeling whole and complete. We don't teach children that. We just go, oh, you got to find the right guy, and he's got to have all the, you know, breathing and everything correctly, and then we're going to like trap him into marrying you, and then you hold out sex because he won't marry you unless you hold, you know, you wait on sex, and then you can have sex with him after that. So that's what we've been teaching our children. That's nuts. I'd rather teach our children that, okay, you know what, at a certain age, you're going to feel like you want to explore sex, and you want to know what that is like. Let mommy know. I'll set up the whole environment for you. You know, like, let's find the guy that you want to have sex with. Let's sit down and have a great, clean conversations around it. Let's talk about condoms and protections and everything, you know, and, you know, I can be outside, I can be two house down, I can be a phone call away, I don't care, but I'm here for you before, during, and after, however you want to do this so that you're safe. Holy cow.
I have two examples on that exact type of thing, and it's beautiful. And two reflections too, because every kid's going to be different. Right. The first one is a very short story about me. When I was 8 years old, that's when I got sat down by my mother, and I had the official, like, where babies come from, because I asked. I saw my cat give birth, and I was like, how'd they get in there? And my mom, who was really open, was like, okay, I'm going to tell you. But she gave me a very, like, you know, anatomical, like, you know, the penis goes into a woman's vagina. So she tells me what sex is, but it wasn't, you know, she said, you know, and ideally, you love the person and it feels really good. So it was a really positive thing, but I remember sitting there and I was horror struck. And I remember starting to cry at the end of it, and she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I want to have 2 kids someday. And she was like, okay, what's wrong with that? And I was like, it means I have to have sex twice. Because I was so scared at the idea of a little boy's penis or a man's penis being inside my body. I was 8 years old, and it was like, and I was having orgasms like crazy. Right. But again, my relationship with the pleasure and the sexual energy was very different than this concept of like somebody's penis inside me. So it totally freaked me out. So there's a reason why kids are like, ew. And I think that's also, I think that there's some of that social conditioning that they're just trained to be like grossed out by it. But there's also the reality that their hormones haven't necessarily kicked in yet. Some kids, their hormones kick in at an early age, but others, they're not interested in sexual pleasure or getting an orgasm or kissing a boy until much later, or a boy might be in kissing a girl. So it's also about navigating like that, the reality that like if kids are like, ew, sex, gross, but not, I don't think we should be afraid to talk to them about it, but honoring that just because they're like, ew, doesn't necessarily mean that they're programmed that it's bad. It's just that they're still kids. You know, it may not be that they're ready to like feel or access sexual energy. And then the second story I want to share, May, is exactly what you just said as an example. I had a friend when I was in school who was older, and she had like a 15 or 16-year-old daughter, and her best friend had a 15 or 16-year-old son, and the two of them knew each other because of their friendship, and they actually started dating. And after being together for a year, and this is so cool, both of these moms were really open, the kids came to their parents, and they were like, we love each other, and we want to have sex. We both want to lose our virginity with each other, and we just, you know, we don't want to sneak around it. We also, you know, don't exactly know, like, if it's the right thing. We wanted to talk to you about it. And they had a discussion, the four of them, where the mothers shared about, like, not just, like the emotional part, but also like physical things. Like they talked about lubrication in case, and like talked about the fact that, well, you're a virgin, honey, and it might hurt more, and, maybe this. And they had a spare house, like a guest house or something, and they let the kids, they drove them to the house, they let them stay there for the weekend and explore sexuality. And these are like 15-year-olds, like this is not like, these are parents like totally supporting their kids. And their kids, like their first experience of sex was making love. It was educated. It was a choice that they both made. Like, I love this person. I care about them. I want to try this. And I just thought, oh my God, what if the whole world was, what if kids felt supported in that?
Yeah. Thank you for that example, because I've been churning that scenario in my head, and all I run into is just fear and objection in my own head. Like, oh my God, you can't say that, and you can't say that on the radio. You're going to get bombarded with people going, what the hell kind of mother are you, to like hook up your kids? And I'm just like, well, shit, who's going to do it? I can't leave it to her being raped in the back seat or some stupid guy, pressure her into having sex with them. It's just not acceptable, not on my watch.
It's kind of like the drink at home, like, parents, there were some parents that were cooler, and they were like, hey, if you're going to drink beer, I'd rather you do it at the basement, and just like hang out here and don't drink and drive. And I'm not suggesting that, like, we should be supporting underage alcohol and drug use, but it's like the same kind of concept. Like, that kids are going to be having sex, it's like education gives them proper tools.
Absolutely.
I think what we're pointing to is, I think there's a respect here. Like, respect them as human beings instead of seeing them as your baby or as kids that they don't know any better. I think they know a lot more than we give them credit for. They're ready a lot more. They will negotiate with us. If you just slow down and ask her, what are you ready for? What do you want to experience? They will tell you. Even though at first it may sound like, I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know. They will think about it and they'll tell you. So I think if we slow down and not assume that, and just vomit in front of them, but just ask them, what are you ready for? What do you want to experience? How can I support you? Make it safe, make it honest, make it real, right? Okay, we have 8 minutes left. So tell them how can they get a hold of you? Give them your full name and a way to get a hold of you. And whatever invite that you'd like them to know about you. Aurora.
Okay. So my name is Aurora Rae, R-A-E. I am in the middle of developing my website. So right now people can email me at thegoddessparadigm@gmail.com. But on Facebook, you can just find me, Aurora Rae. And I'm trying to think of other ways. I have a YouTube channel, which you can find under Priestess Aurora. And
Thank you.
It.
Perfect.
Yeah.
How about you, Ashley?
Oh, thank you. Well, let's see. My website is actually up right now. It's just simple. It's my name. It's Ashley Apple, ASHLEYAPPLE, so ashleyapple.com. And I'm actually in the process of filming my online video series. It's called the Juicy Living Course, and this is designed for adults and adult women. And it's basically helping women access, it's starting the education with them. We go over the physical anatomy, what the sexual energy anatomy is, the different types of orgasm, actual techniques that they can use with their minds, with their hearts to connect their energy, even some fun, playful things around oral sex techniques. There's also the art of seduction, different ways of accessing their creative power. And so that online course is being filmed. That will be up and hopefully launching this fall. I do privates either through Skype or on the phone, as well as I have an office in Oakland, California. I have a business called the Yoni Temple where I work with clients and couples. People can email me at AshleyJuicyApple, and that's Ashley, A-S-H-L-E-Y, Juicy, J-U-I-C-Y, Apple.com, at Gmail. AshleyJuicyApple@gmail. If you have any questions. And yeah, my background is really in kind of blending tantric and Taoist philosophy, because the Eastern philosophies really help us understand sexual energy and the different ways of accessing it in our body for intimacy and heart connection. And yeah, if you're interested in studying with me, I do workshops and retreats and classes. I do a lot of private classes around the Bay Area. You can always also email me and set up a private class as well in any of the subject matter. So yeah, you can find me on Facebook. My fan page is Ashley Juicy Apple. And also please go to my website and put your email in, and you'll get on my mailing list for upcoming workshops and my online course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. And you know what? You guys should come join me on the next Google Hangout, which is next Thursday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, when we talk about developing your personal sexual practice. I think that would be so lovely. It's a fun conversation, lots of great guests on there, and other sex educators and coaches and, sex positive groups of people to explore this, like, what does that really mean to have your own sexual practice?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I am May Vu, and I work with divorced women and also couples in crisis, as you heard from my commercial earlier. With divorced women, I help them blend the new families together, talk about sex with their kids, and be with this new man and create this new relationship in ways that will break their own patterns, the old patterns that had them tiptoeing around their relationship and walking on eggshells, and also, working really hard to make everybody happy. That's for the birds. That's the last. That was the last marriage. You don't need to repeat that. So now that you broke out of that and you're creating a new, find new ways so that to create the relationship that would work for everybody around you, and it's totally available. And for every show, I offer one complimentary discovery session. So a full hour and a half with me, all for you and nothing else, all dedicated to you, and it's complimentary. So if you like to have a look at your own life and your own relationship and discover something new for yourself, contact me at mayvucoach.com, or go to my Sex, Lies, and Consciousness website. You can contact me there too. I have 2 websites. Alrighty. I will talk to you next week. What show am I? Oh, next week's show is on sex, shames, and secrecy. So I will have my friend Johanna Lyman. She is a show producer and performer, and her upcoming show in September in the Bay Area is on sex, shames, and secrecy, opening the Pandora's box. So several artists and just normal people like you and me are doing their piece to share a secret that they've held about their own sexual journey. And it's going to be a very empowering and lovely evening. I invite you to listen to my radio show, and also invite you to check her out and go to the upcoming openingpandorasbox.com so that you can see the upcoming show. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week, and stay safe and have lots of great sex.
Thank you.